If you're looking for a business opportunity in Waterford, it could be that warehouse facilities is the thing to get into. If by any chance you're in the business of providing storage space in Clare, it could also be a wise idea to move to Waterford. While it's been revealed that it costs €658,000 to store all of our unused and unloved electronic voting machines, it has also emerged that the cost in some counties is more equal than others. $50,000 a year in Waterford to store 195 machines, while 200 machines in Clare can be stored for $10,800. Our reporter Fergus Sweeney has been getting a guided tour of what must be a very luxuriously appointed warehouse in Waterford. He joins me from the not so luxuriously appointed RTE studios in the city. You've met the county registrar, Fergus.
I have, yeah. I spent an hour in his office this morning. His name is Niall Rooney. And he's the guy who's also the returning officer down here. So he would have been responsible for the running of the elections, the general elections and local elections, European elections, and the old boxes that used to be used, the metal boxes for ballots. He used to store them, but they didn't cost anything to store because they could be stored around, as they were, around the old courthouse, and he has an office in the courthouse.
So from zero cost to 50,000?
Yeah, well actually it's more than that. The Public Accounts Committee did reveal that this was the figure yesterday, 50,000, but that doesn't include the likes of insurance, security, light and heat, so it's actually 55,000. So in the newspaper this morning, the average cost per machine was stated at €260 per year, but it's actually 280 when you take into account that it's 55,000. But funny enough, I have to say this, Niall told me that he never got rid of all his old ballot boxes because he felt that there would be problems with the e-voting, so he held on to them. And you may remember that lots of returning officers got rid of their boxes. I think they...
€10 a pop it cost them to buy them back.
Yeah, and they sold them off very cheaply at the time. I think it was for €1 or so. So he held on to his, and as a result he didn't have to fork out loads of money.
Okay, well congratulate him on that saving then, but 50,000 a year to store the e-voting machines versus 10,800 in Clare. How does he explain that?
Well, basically he said he took legal advice because he was given specifications from the Department of the Environment, and indeed in the contract that he signed with the manufacturers, and I've seen that contract, there are certain specifications for storage. The machines must be stored at a certain temperature, at a certain humidity, and if those specifications aren't complied with, the warranty is invalid. And he's employed by, this is what he tells me, he's employed by the government on a contractual basis, and he's legally responsible for storing those machines, for ensuring that the elections are carried out properly. I saw the contract. It says it in there that the returning officer is legally liable. So he took professional advice, and he decided from the professional advice that if he was to just store them in, say, the back of a garage or a shed or whatever, and at half the cost, if anything went wrong, if they got damp and they had to be returned and it cost thousands because the warranty wasn't valid, he would be responsible. So he decided to comply with the contract to the letter of the law.
Well, you know what you're talking yourself into now here is a trip to Clare to find out the comparable circumstances in which their machines are stored.
Well, absolutely. I sort of said this to him. So do you suspect that maybe the other returning officers are not complying with the contract as you are? But he said, I can't possibly comment on that.
So tell us about this storage facility anyway.
Yeah, this afternoon I did have a tour of it. Now, I'm not going to tell you where it is because we don't want people breaking in there and tampering with these machines and fixing the next election. But it is, it's in a complex...
Very responsible of you.
Isn't that right? It's in a complex of buildings, centrally located. There's a security firm looking after all the buildings in there, and it's properly alarmed. It is quite spacious, and I was quite surprised at how well appointed it would be. I imagined that it might be just four walls and a roof, but as I say, it's quite spacious, and when I went there with Niall, it's quite modern. Have a listen to this.
In front of me now at the moment are the machines stored on trolleys. There's 6 per trolley, and there's 195 machines. Behind those are the tables which are to support the machines, which are specially designed tables that the Department of Environment had designed so as to be user-friendly for disabled users. Now, just off to my right, there are 3 small offices which would be used by the staff when they would be setting up the machines and preparing the modules on computer that would go into the machines, and there's a small storeroom off that.
And there's 2 doors up here. What are they for now?
The second door is a very, very small kitchenette, which is more or less standard now under health and safety, and the other door is a small toilet and shower, again under health and safety, which would be very appropriate.
You have to have that kitchen and you have to have the shower.
It's recommended that you do.
And that's for people that will be working here?
Yes, because obviously these machines, the minimum weight that one person can carry is exceeded by the weight of those machines, so that it's quite heavy work. And if somebody was moving a lot of machines with an election on, they might want to have a shower before going home.
Now, the space, you've described the space we're in, it's about a little bit bigger than the average classroom, I'd say, here.
That'd be about right.
But the machines themselves, and they're on trolleys, and there's about 6 on each trolley,
yes.
But they're only taking up about a third of the space in here at the moment. Why do you need the rest of the space?
Well, I would say it's actually slightly more than a third. I'd say it's nearer half the space. And the position is that we have an up and over door which allows us to reverse in a van so that we can load the machines directly onto the van. Therefore, if you had a bad winter's night and you were trying to do this work before an election, there's no question of them being brought out in the damp or the rain. They would go straight into the van and taken away. And that is a very important workspace. Plus, you need space. You would set out tables and put the machines on them, and you'd have to work on each machine separately. So you could have several people here working. When you have 3 weeks for an election is the average, and you have to be able to prepare quickly and do all the work so that you'd have a number of people in the secured area, and you'd have sufficient space.
A secured area, a kitchen, a shower, a trolley each. It's better conditions than most A&Es around the country.
I was just going to say that with 6 machines per trolley, I was hoping that there'd be no health managers listening, or else some patients around the country are in trouble next week.
So, how did he go about acquiring this place, and why was it so much better suited and more competitive than any of the other options?
Well, as I say, from the outset, because he's a lawyer, and indeed I think most of the returning officers have legal backgrounds, but he decided he was going to get professional advice. So he started off and he employed a firm of architects. He started off and contacted a local auctioneer, and the auctioneer cited 6 various locations, 5 or 6 various locations. Then he got a firm of auctioneers involved, a firm of architects rather, involved to determine which of these sites did comply with the manufacturer's specifications. Now, as it turned out, one of the sites, and it was the site that I was taking on a tour today, the one that he's now leased for 10 years, was actually owned by the auctioneer that he approached in the first place to locate sites. Now, I questioned him about that because it seemed to me that the auctioneer then, was he totally independent? He had a vested interest in his building being the one which would house these e-voting machines. But I spoke to Niall and he says everything is open and transparent.
The auctioneer is in partnership with his wife and another gentleman and his wife. Right before, from the very start, he said to me, I own this building with another gentleman and our wives, and he said, I want to make that clear from the start. I want to be transparent. The architect was told that as well, so there was absolutely no doubt. It was totally transparent, and I went about the business of complying with the directions from the department in a very transparent and open way, and my file shows that.
But does it not look to the public, does it not look a little bit awkward that the person that you got to go out independently and look at various sites actually chose a site that was owned by that person himself?
No, that's not the position. The architect chose this site, not the auctioneer. The auctioneer simply showed the architect several buildings, and the architect decided himself and recommended, totally independent and knowing full well, that this building was owned by the auctioneer and his partners.
But at least in the auctioneer choosing the 4 sites that he brought to your attention, one of them was the auctioneer's site, so he had a vested interest in you choosing this building.
Well, one could look at it that way if one wanted to, but the architect's brief was clear that this building belonged to the auctioneer, and to look at it in that way and to be very independent about it, so that his recommendations be based upon his professional opinion, not upon any sort of allegiance to anybody.
Can I clarify something here, Fergus, please? The auctioneer was told, the architect was told by the auctioneer in advance that this was actually his building when he presented him with a number of alternatives, yes?
Yes, and from what I gather from Niall as well, Niall was told straight up when the auctioneer came back with the sites, he said, and by the way, this is my site.
Okay, and did any work have to be done on this premises to bring it up to the standards at which it is now?
Yes, I think
so it wasn't ready fitted, it wasn't ready to move into from the moment that the auctioneer first showed it to the architect?
No, and from the documents that I saw today, and I can't quite remember the figures, but there was between 200 and 300,000 euros spent on bringing that building up to requirements.
All right. Fergus Sweeney in our Waterford studio, thank you very much for that. We'll take a break.